Um, I have to say, Sam Malone, it's kind of a luxury as a fan of a team to have a 2-game losing streak for the first time in who knows when.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right.
And be miserable about it. Ultimately, to come back with a win against Minnesota last week against your former franchise quarterback. It is a bit of a luxury. It's a Cat Country 96 Birds recap. It's brought to you by Miller Lite, the official beer sponsor of the Philadelphia Eagles, and by our friends at Banko Beverage Company. You can find them at bankobeverage.com. So Sammy, tell me your first
Yeah.
takeaways from Minnesota last week. A good win for the Birds as they
Yeah.
kind of right the ship after a couple of losses.
That was a really, really, really good win for the Birds. Didn't get to Carson as much as I thought they would. I think they had 1 or 2 sacks. One of them was a bad snap, but I think they had, 1 or 2 sacks. The defense had to play well when they did. If you're going inside the red zone for, I think, 6 tries and you give up 5 field goals, I think that's a pretty good day. The defense is pretty much doing their job on that end. I like the energy of the offense. I like the fact that we hit a couple different wide receivers for over 100 yards, the 2 main wide receivers, of course. And
Did they? I didn't hear anything about
yeah,
that. I
you
didn't have
heard
that in my
nothing.
notes. Yeah.
No, it's all quiet talk. The only issue I had, a little bit of an issue, I guess, is still the running game and the defensive line. Those are the 2 big deals. The running game is going to get going. It's really not a concern. I don't think it is. You're going to get, I think Minnesota was close to last ranked against the run, if not, dead
They
last.
were
I'm not
down
sure.
there, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were down
they
there.
should, but eventually the run's going to get fixed. Barkley's a team. Thank goodness Barkley's a team player. And can you imagine if he pulls an AJ Brown type deal where he wants the ball more, he can do more, and he's being a team player about it. It's going to get fixed, but the defensive line is still a big issue to me. And getting Brandon Graham back on the edge is nice. I hope he still has it. I hope he's in football shape. He's active. He's ready to go for Sunday. Those are still nice win. I'll take it in Minnesota. Not the easiest place to play. I know that it wasn't a dome. They had the roof open, but I'll take the win.
Yeah, I think you do have to look at it with some perspective. I'm kind of happy you brought up BG there,
Yeah.
and the go to Minnesota, get a win. You're coming off of 2 straight
Right.
losses. Good to see the offense find a rhythm.
Yep.
Good to see Jalen Carter look like Jalen Carter in stretches of this game, which I think was a big deal. So as you bring up the defensive line, I think if nothing else, the one thing that maybe BG can do that you hope that he can do to the level that he did it last year is set that edge.
Yeah.
It's been an issue for the team this year. I think
Sure.
getting Nolan Smith back is
Yeah.
almost equal,
Well,
greater than BG, but equal to the addition of like a really, kind of premier kind of player there. Cause I think Nolan's game is going to continue to grow.
is he back this week, Nolan Smith? Is he
So
with?
they are Jacorian Bennett, and there's one more that I think is off of the IR this week. Will he play? Like how much
Yeah.
he's going to play? I don't know. It'll be
Right.
interesting to see how they kind of handle that, getting ready to go into the bye week. If they
Right. Right.
almost say to themselves, like, if we can, but again, we kind of talked about that in the last Giants game when Landon was hurt and they had a couple guys banged up. It was like, oh, well, we can just, if Jalen Carter misses the game with a heel, no big deal. And then the Giants put it on them
Yeah.
on Thursday Night Football. So it will be interesting to see kind of the approach for the Eagles this week. I will say, we kind of, even as we were talking about the things that were difficult to understand with this team earlier on in the season, the one thing that they've done really well on both sides of the ball is the red zone. You mentioned how well the Eagles defense did in the red zone. Fortunately, the Eagles didn't really have to play too much offense in the red zone because they were scoring such long touchdowns in this
Right.
game.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned the defensive line,
Yep. Yep.
this
Yep. Yep.
bend but don't break kind of thing that they've had going here. Beyond the defensive line, you're taking with Nakobe Dean getting his start.
Yeah. It was nice to see him in there. Yep.
Yeah,
Very nice.
yeah, yeah. And I think as we talk about the ground defense, Nakobe is a really good. The thing he did going all the way back to Georgia was read and react, and I think we saw that with the Vikings' inability to run the ball particularly well on Sunday. So the defense, what you're thinking coming up?
Yeah.
Jacorian Bennett, is he going to make his way in
Well,
there? Andrew Makuba, kind of those rookie mistakes. What do you
yeah.
think? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was nice to see Makuba, get a nice pick. It wasn't the most difficult pick he'll ever have in his life. I mean,
Right.
Carson lit it pretty much.
Very Carson Wentz on that
Yes,
play.
very
Yeah.
Carson Wentz, absolutely. I'm a little concerned, I'm Quinyon Mitchell's pretty much healthy. He had a good game for the most part. I'm concerned on the other side. I don't know what we're doing on the other side as of yet with Jackson is still he has a concussion. I haven't heard the latest. Does he have to be out an entire week or does he still can he still
It's protocol, so
yeah.
he pretty much once they give him a green light, he's in. There's
Oh,
no
okay.
definitive,
Okay.
I would say if he's still limited or not practicing
Yeah.
today, there's probably not a pretty good chance that he's playing on Sunday. And again, maybe they're looking at it
Sure.
as why even push it if, if we can feel comfortable with Keeley or
Oh,
Jacorian or whatever the case may be. It's fascinating because with that position, I
yeah.
know Cooper DeJean is so good
Yep. Yep.
in the slot, but man, he makes that play on Justin Jefferson in
Yes,
the
he
corner of
did.
the end zone and
Yep.
it makes you think almost do they, I don't think you replace him in the slot, but do you maybe need him on the outside to be that dude? And can a guy like Perry Nickerson or Mac McWilliams, who also is getting healthy, could
Mhm.
one of those guys become the
Well,
Patrick Robinson, the Avonte Maddox kind of guy that the Eagles have had in that slot position over the last couple of seasons?
that's what we're gonna have to see this week. Somebody on the defensive backside that really gonna have to just step it up. Now, with that said, the Giants and they didn't 2 weeks ago. The Giants don't have their starting receivers out there either. So you look at that.
Well,
So
Malik Neighbors, yeah. Well, he's out for
Malik
the
is out,
season and stuff like that. Yeah.
and you look at that. And this is a chance now. You're playing at home. You got the fans supporting everybody on the defensive end, the defensive side. And I think somebody's going to have to make a play. The one that I want to see make a big play and make a name for themselves is Ringo. I mean, everybody under the sun has given up on him. I get it. He had a couple bad games, but man, if he can, I'm pulling for him. He probably will end up starting. I would think at this point,
Mhm.
no trades have been made. You're not getting anybody off the practice squad at this point. I think he's going to be starting. And if that guy could just make a couple key plays, could turn everything around for
Sure.
his confidence. Even if I'm not saying you have to have 3 interceptions, but be there, break a couple pass plays, get in on some tackles. And I think that could, excuse me, I think that could actually, you know, again, the whole confidence level on Ringo. He's been a Bird for 2 or 3 years now, I believe, right? So
This is his might even be his fourth,
yeah,
third,
he's
third
been
or third season. Definitely more than two, I think. So
yeah.
yeah.
So he has that winning experience, being on a Super Bowl or two. It's just get that confidence. I don't think he's that bad of a player. He showed some really good signs even in the preseason. He's got to get that confidence back, and I think, man, that's going to go a long way.
Yeah, and I wonder how much they had some rotational things at safety with Sidney Brown kind of starting the season. It's
Yeah.
really been kind of Andrew Makuba going forward, but
Mhm.
and certainly there's still the Jacorian Bennett element of
Yeah.
this. They went out and got him, towards the end of training camp. Is that a guy, Vic kind of with a very Vic answer in his press conference kind of alluded to like, we're gonna,
Sure. Yeah.
we're playing hands we're dealt right now a little bit. So that'll be fascinating. Again, we mentioned you add Nakobe Dean back into the defense, a
Mhm.
really nice piece to get back. You had BG, Nolan Smith. Can they put Jahad Campbell in some conducive
Well,
situations to be an athletic freak? What he was in Alabama was the guy that you could put in a lot of different spots to
yeah.
make plays. Can they find a way to do that with him? I think I'm hoping, I'll say I'm hoping, now that Andrew Makuba's got a little bit of time under his belt, he's got to tackle better in the open field.
Yes,
That's
he
really the
does.
big thing with him right now.
Yep.
But I'm hoping that we're going to get the best of the defense going forward. With some of these growing pains maybe being worked out so far in the early part of the season. We flip over to the other side of the ball, and what a delight to see this passing game just throw all over the Minnesota
Yeah.
Vikings. They had some sputtery moments there in the middle, but all in all, your impressions of the offense.
Yeah, I think it was. They looked relaxed. Tell me they didn't look relaxed. They looked relaxed for the first time in a couple of weeks, and just to see them do what they do best, and to see the two wide receivers, of course, Brown and Smith, get involved with two 100-yard games, as I mentioned earlier. It's just really nice to see. It was pleasant to see, and you didn't know where he was going. Sitting back watching the game, like, how many times do we say? He's going to hand the ball off to Barkley here. He's going to do this. We call it so many times, but it was neat to see. Like it was a surprise where he was going with the football. He was going to Smith. He was going to AJ Brown. I think he didn't hit Goddard. He didn't attempt Goddard too many times, but he did. And it was just, it was nice to see. They looked relaxed. They looked like they were all on the same page. Even the offensive line. I know there's still some issues especially the left guard issue, but even on the offensive line, they looked like they were gelling. Like you said, Crockett, towards the middle there were some spitter spatter moments, especially after the interception with Makuba. You have really good field position. I believe they were at their own 45 or close to
Mhm.
midfield. They didn't do anything with that possession.
Yeah.
You look at that and you're like, come on, we got to establish something here. Field position, let's get something going. And that was the disappointment of, oh no, here we go again type deal with the play calling and with the actual execution too. You got to give it on both sides there.
Scat Country 96 Birds recap. It's brought to you by Miller Lite, the official beer sponsor of the Philadelphia Eagles, and by Banko Beverage Company. Yeah, I think you can make a lot of the obvious things that everybody's saying, or it's funny because everybody's wondering
Yeah,
how much of the going under center was schematic. To me, I'm
right,
wondering,
right.
you see that snap go over Carson Wentz's head. Brett
And
Toth comes in there to play. I wonder how much they're saying to themselves, let's mitigate as much damage as we could
yeah,
have for the
right.
bad snap.
Mhm.
And it almost, by divine intervention makes Jalen get under center and things just look a little bit different. I don't mind when
Mhm.
they go in the pistol. When you get in the
Right.
shotgun, you get a little predictable, but I think anything that you could do to hold the defense for an extra second is a really
Yeah.
important thing. And when you're dominant from the shotgun and you got a single back, great, go ahead, go all over the field. But it hasn't been that case all season long. All of a sudden, maybe just out of precaution, they got Jalen under center a little bit more, and now you've kind of got eyes going in different directions from what a defense is used to
Yeah.
seeing from this team, which I thought was just an interesting thing. I don't know whether that was schematic, going
Well,
into the game that we're going to get under center more, or if that was a Cam
right.
Jurgens is out. Let's try to mitigate anything that we can.
And when is the last time you saw a game? Honestly, how long has it been since we've seen both starting quarterbacks, for the most part, be under center for most of the game? You really don't see that much at all anymore. And it was just, that's one of the observations I had. I'm like, both are under center. You don't see it that much.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. Again, if you're listen, this Eagles team could have gotten in the wing T last year and been
Right.
a great
Yep.
operation on the offensive side of the ball. But it really is sometimes just some of those little wrinkles that can make
Yep.
you all of a sudden say, okay, we've got something that we can be productive with here. It's just the way the offensive line was, we alluded to that game, the first game against the Giants, where the Eagles were getting kind of
Yep.
bullied around and pushed around. um, when you're not running the football effectively and you get into shotgun and I've got you to my right, the first thing the defense is thinking, it's really hard for me to turn this way and think you're
Right.
going to go that way. It's really easy to think I'm going to turn this way and you're going to ride the momentum of the handoff. And so if they're going to shoot those gaps and you're trying to run a zone scheme and you're
Yeah.
not blocking it effectively, you're going to kind of get the results that you've gotten. And so I almost think whether they want to pat Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni on the back and say this was our game plan all along, or if they made a good deserve a pat on the back, if they made a good
Sure.
in-game adjustment and said we
Either
got to
way.
change the center, we have to go under center just to protect the football. However it worked out, whatever it was, I think it worked out for this offense,
Yep.
and hopefully we'll continue to do so going forward because they had their opportunities against the Giants. Say what you want about what the
They do.
Giants did. They were the more physical team. They missed opportunities against the Giants. The Giants, you want to talk about missing opportunities, let a good one slip away against
Yes, they
Denver
did.
last weekend. But there's a Giants team that scored 34 against the Eagles 2 weeks ago, 32 against and missed extra points, stuff like that.
Right.
32 against Denver last week.
They put
What's
50
your
up almost against Dallas, really.
and so
You
what's
know?
your concern
Yeah.
going into this game with the Giants?
I feel better knowing we have a little. It's the quarterback play, of course. I feel better knowing we have some film on Jackson Dart now. He's good.
Yeah.
I know he's only played a handful of
Credit
games
where
before.
credit's due. Yeah. The kid's
Yeah, he's
the kid's been
a good
good.
quarterback. You look at it, and even their running game has gotten better in New York. And I look at their offense a little bit. I think if we can stop, you know, it seems like you stop two offensive players. It's easy to say stop the quarterback, and you're going to do well. But He's like a little Baker Mayfield-ish, and the Eagles have issues with Baker Mayfield style. You look at that, and the Giants have a very good defense as well. I know they gave up a lot of points and this and that, but they have a very solid defense for the most part. So I think if we think okay, the Eagles game is at home this week, we're going to light it up against the Giants, revenge, revenge. I feel it, but I also feel the Giants aren't just going to lay down. Giants are going to make this game tough. It's an NFC East battle. They were embarrassed last week, in Denver. They're not going to want to get that same type of game. So I think this is going to be a tough game. Eagles need to find a way to win this because you're going into the bye week. You're going to get a lot of your players back. You don't want to be sitting at a bye week at 5-3. Whoever thought we'd say that? You don't want to be, go back a couple years. But
Sure.
you know, I think the Eagles find a way to do this. The Eagles were embarrassed as well a couple weeks ago against them on national TV. Giants were embarrassed last week, so I think it's going to be a good game. You're going to see both teams giving it their best performance. I think next week or on Sunday. So I think the Eagles pull this one out. As
I think
a
one of the things that the Broncos did in that fourth quarter was make plays, not so
they
much
did.
a play developed in your favor, some tough catches, generating turnovers, making
Sure.
those turnovers count. We saw Jalix Hunt do that
Yeah.
last week, but the guy played safety in college, looked like it, making that
Yep.
pick and taking it back to
Absolutely.
the end zone.
Yep.
So I think that's what they missed out on against the Giants last time. I think a little home cooking. I think maybe getting some people back, they're able to do that as well. So I do think the Eagles also take the game at home. We picking Jake Elliott walk off. What kind of game you looking at
No,
here?
every time I do a Jake Elliott walk off, I'm wrong on that. I think this is a game where we see Eagles have the lead by like 4 or 5 with 7 minutes to go in the game, and they just eat the clock up. We are due for one of those games where the running game is going to begin to work. Little short passes, maybe a deep ball over the middle to create a first down. I think it's a game where we can, fourth quarter. It's that boring offense. All they do is eat up clock. I think that's coming back.
I
I do.
sure hope so, because
Yeah.
that is an element that it is boring football, but it's
Yeah.
fun to watch when you're the team that's
Absolutely.
running the clock out. That's
You
for
get that right.
sure. It is
Yeah.
the Cat Country 96 Birds recap brought to you by Miller Lite, the official beer sponsor of the Philadelphia Eagles, as well as by our friends at Banko Beverage Company. I got to give a shout out to them. We had our little pink dress party earlier this
Yeah.
week, and Banko was out there in full effect. Their whole crew was awesome. So a big shout out to them.
Yeah,
So visit them.
congratulations.
Thank you, buddy.
It
Thank
was
you.
a
Visit
huge
them
success.
at
Yep.
bankobeverage.com. You and I will be out for the next Cat Country 96 Birds recap. So we'll let you all know where that is, what time that is, when that's locked in. We will certainly look forward to seeing you there. Until then, buddy,
Sounds
as
good.
always, go Birds.
Go Birds.
We'll see you next